Hey everyone, today we're going to see how Tae-jin turned civilian cars into his battle tanks to block the Han River bridges leading to the cap. The 2nd Airborne Brigade had to use Sinji Bridge out of necessity. The bridge is controlled by the Mitsubishi Division. Though Tae-jin couldn't block it, he got support from the chief. What a twist. Phone eavesdropping was no joke. The rebels had no better plan and could only call the division chief. Scaring him was the game plan, and guess what? It worked like a charm. The division chief got scared. When the 2nd Airborne Brigade successfully entered the Sinji Bridge, Tae-jin looked around and thought, what blockade? There's nothing here. He had no choice but to rely on his courage and one gun for a gamble, and boy, was this a thrill ride. With this action, the opposing party was also deeply intimidated. After all, what stood before them was a 2-star Major General, and if they were not cautious, they would end up facing a military court in the future. They had to stop, even with Commander Chun promising to enter Seoul. The war was just on the brink. If they turned back, it would be a clean slate, but they got scared and turned around immediately. It's a real mix of emotions. The rebels, hearing the news, were agitated like ants on a hot pan. Where was Doo-hwan? He was off with a bunch of generals, apparently complicating things even more. The president was still saying that without the defense minister's approval, nothing could happen. What a bummer. No matter how calculated it was, nobody dared to get too bold in front of the president. Sure enough, Doo-hwan had to back off again, and when he left, he heard the bad news that the 2nd Airborne Brigade got spooked and ran off. Talk about infuriating. When they met, he greeted him as little bro, pulling him in for a happy circle dance, asking him to lead the charge into Seoul. But you're back here smiling. How could he not be angry? Doo-hwan was fuming. Subsequently, a highly infectious and captivating performance was launched, and this particular move was an absolute sensation that blew everyone away. The brigade commander was stunned, hurried back to the 2nd Airborne Brigade's base, mimicked the new trick, and handed over the gun. The scene was just so classic. The plan worked perfectly. It was like a masterclass in action. Under the brigade commander's carrot and stick approach, the 2nd Airborne Brigade turned back toward the Incheon Bridge, while Tae-jin was in big trouble. The infantry division that had just pledged support had a sudden change of heart, and Tae-jin had to call everyone one by one for help. This was turning into a real. Ultimately, he reached out to the 8th Airborne Brigade closest to the capital, but their commander still said no. The reason was simple. Doo-hwan had the manpower advantage. Who would want their troops to be cannon fodder? Tae-jin had no choice but to directly threaten him. How could the nation's capital ever be ceded to those rebels? Hearing such heartfelt words, the brigade commander showed some spirit and finally agreed to send troops. Turns out, he wasn't made of stone. The troops made it to Seoul first, and when Doo-hwan found out, he was furious. He was really out of ideas. He reached out to the B2D Defense Office's deputy chief, insisting he wasn't part of a rebellion and even suggested a withdrawal. The phrase gentleman's agreement was laughable, yet the deputy chief believed it, watching as the opposing 2nd Airborne Brigade just turned around. He immediately ordered the 8th Airborne Brigade to retreat, truly an intricate game of wits. Commander Doo-hwan covered the scene personally, blasting insults over the radio. His rage was off the charts. I negotiate with ungrateful animals. No matter how nasty Con yelled, the deputy chief remained stubborn. He insisted on a peaceful resolution, and when you know it, the 2nd Airborne Brigade stopped their retreat, getting ready to sneakily cross the river to the capital. Tae-jin pleaded with the 8th Airborne Brigade commander not to leave. It was a real showdown of strength and bravery. But the commander saw the truth. The biggest enemy was the pig-headed leadership, and tagging along with them was a dead end. Even knowing the enemy was playing tricks, they chose to retreat. At least it meant saving their. By this time, the 2nd Airborne Brigade had successfully crossed and quickly seized control of the bridge. It was the perfect opportunity. Meanwhile, Nam Musang returned to B2D Defense, claiming to CQ's aid. Now hearing that Doo-hwan pulled back, he felt safe to return and take charge. What a performer. The one sane person there, besides Yi, finally got his savior. What a twist. But Nam Musang turned out to be the biggest deadweight in the team, claiming the rebellion was a misunderstanding. No problem, just clear things up, but he blamed the deputy chief for raising the alert. Before we could even hear the result, yet another unexpected incident was coming our way. At this moment, the 2nd Airborne Brigade was already closing in. What a hilarious turn of events. Nam Musang nearly peed himself, and his first instinct was to do what he does best: run. There's no defense at the office anyway. Better run over to Lee Tae-jin's place where at least someone can hold the fort. Precisely was left speechless. This was the army headquarters, boiling with frustration. Every emotion was in full swing. This night was all about showcasing how ridiculous the system had become. As he spoke, Precisely took off his gun. The leaders were stunned. He declared he would hold the office, while the leaders could feel free to run off. What a plot twist. And so this bunch of clowns immediately panicked and fled, triggering a massive chaos. At this moment, the 2nd Airborne Brigade was advancing in Chun. Doo-hwan's despair. Let's fight for justice together.